Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Today, we're putting on our cybersecurity analyst hats and launching a full-blown investigation into a protocol you use every single day, probably without even thinking about it. We're going to unmask a digital Trojan horse that's literally hiding right in plain sight.
So imagine a highly trusted diplomatic courier. You know, the type: official vehicle, official seal, and the border guards, they just wave them right through the checkpoints. Nobody's popping the trunk. Now, what if the internet's most trusted messenger, the core diagnostic tool we use to keep everything running, was secretly being weaponized by attackers to smuggle malicious data right past our multi-million-dollar firewalls? Crazy, right?
Let's start with Section 1, the Internet's trusted messenger.
Whenever a network admin, or honestly even just an everyday user, needs to figure out if a server is actually online or why a connection is lagging, they rely on this specific messenger. It really acts as the fundamental heartbeat of the network, just constantly checking if systems are alive and reachable.
We're talking, of course, about ICMP, the Internet Control Message Protocol. It's a foundational supporting protocol that routers and network devices use to send error messages and operational info. Say a requested service isn't available or a router goes offline, ICMP is what carries that destination unreachable or time exceeded message back to you. When you run a standard ping command to test your connection, you're just sending an ICMP echo request, and the target system politely fires back an ICMP echo reply.
But here is where the history gets super interesting. The structural rules for ICMP were laid out way back in 1981 in a document called RFC 792, and it specifically states that ICMP packets, specifically type 0, the echo reply, and type 8, the echo request, can carry an arbitrary data length. Originally, this was just so part of a failed message could be sent back to help diagnose errors. But as an analyst, when I see arbitrary data length combined with a highly trusted protocol, yeah, I see a massive loophole just waiting to be exploited.
Which brings us to Section 2, the dark side of ping. The hardware reality of this problem is honestly fascinating. You might assume routers have dedicated hardware just to process pings, but they don't. There's no commercial router out there with a traceroute ASIC chip. Instead, ICMP generation is what we call a slow path data plane operation. It relies on the router's general purpose CPU. And since those CPUs are busy handling other vital control plane functions, throwing high volumes of ICMP requests at them can rapidly exhaust a router's resources. Suddenly, our helpful messenger is a weapon of denial.
So the initial threat landscape looks a bit like this. First up, attackers use ICMP reconnaissance. They automate scripts to ping massive IP ranges, quietly mapping out live systems, finding network boundaries, and sniffing out firewall rules. Then, things escalate to ping floods. This is where botnets bombard targets with echo requests, completely exhausting that slow path CPU and network bandwidth we just talked about. And finally, amplification attacks. Think of the infamous Smurf attack, where attackers spoof their source IP to make it look like the victim sent the ping, broadcasting it to an entire network. Suddenly, multiple systems are replying to the victim all at once, totally flooding them.
Moving on to Section 3, the ICMP tunneling threat. Now, the concept of tunneling isn't inherently evil. Take a look at the legitimate MPLS ICMP tunneling over here. A lot of large core networks use MPLS, where devices don't even carry an IP routing table, they just switch labeled packets. If a router inside that network needs to generate an ICMP error, it cleverly puts that message back into the same labeled path to get it delivered. It's a neat engineering trick, even if it makes trace routes look a little weird. But then, we have malicious ICMP tunneling. This is where attackers inject arbitrary, malicious payloads into those echo requests. Why? To completely bypass firewalls, pass shell commands, or exfiltrate stolen data totally undetected. Let's break this down in Section 4, how covert channels operate. Let's walk through this heist step by step. Step 1, the attacker takes advantage of that 1981 RFC rule we mentioned and embeds a malicious payload, maybe an encrypted command, right into the arbitrary data section of an ICMP echo request. Step 2, the packet hits the perimeter firewall. The firewall sees what looks like a standard ping request, and because it's configured to allow basic diagnostic traffic, it just waves it right through. Step 3, inside the network. A compromised proxy computer receives that ping, extracts the hidden command, executes it, and then actually embeds the results into the data section of an ICMP echo reply, sending it right back out. Step 4, by repeating this loop, the attacker turns this exchange into a continuous, bidirectional serial line. They've built a fully established encrypted covert channel. They can even encapsulate entire TCP sessions over this. Fun fact, people actually use this exact method to illegally bypass paywalls at commercial Wi-Fi hotspots. The core issue here is summed up perfectly by this quote from our sources.
Since ICMP is not typically inspected as deeply as TCP or UDP traffic, malicious payloads can pass through unnoticed. As defenders, we spend so much time and money running deep packet inspection on web and email traffic, but we rarely stop to actually thoroughly search the mailman's bag.
Section 5. Defending against ICMP tunnels.
Like we noted earlier, because routers rely on those general-purpose CPUs for ICMP generation, the very first thing we absolutely must do is implement strict limits and controls on how they process these packets. If left unchecked, a simple routing loop or a basic denial-of-service attack could literally bring down your entire router. No joke.
So here is the practical rapid-fire analyst playbook for mitigation. First, rate limit ICMP traffic at the kernel or interface level on your edge routers to prevent that resource exhaustion. Next, set up granular firewall rules. Don't just allow all ICMP traffic blindly, only allow the specific types you actually need. Third, implement strict anti-spoofing controls, like URPF, to ensure incoming packets actually have valid source IP addresses. Fourth, and this one directly targets tunneling, enforce fixed-sized ICMP packets at the firewall. If a ping comes knocking carrying a massive arbitrary payload, drop it immediately. And finally, deploy specialized DDoS protection and deep packet inspection to hunt for behavioral anomalies like weirdly consistent ping traffic patterns that scream hidden tunnel.
But I gotta issue a massive warning here. Yes, you should absolutely disable high-risk ICMP messages, like directed broadcasts to kill Smurf attacks, but you must never, ever block all ICMP traffic everywhere. If you drop a blanket ban on ICMP, you're going to break path MTU discovery, you'll lose vital error reporting, and you will make legitimate network troubleshooting virtually impossible. Just don't do it.
Which brings us to the ultimate defender's dilemma. How exactly do we lock out the digital smugglers without stopping the very heartbeat of the internet? It requires careful tuning, granular filtering, and a really deep understanding of network behavior. By respecting the power of ICMP and recognizing its vulnerabilities, we can keep our networks both operational and secure. Thanks for joining me on this explainer. Keep your packet inspections deep, and I'll catch you next time.